and a gentleman who's had experience talking to presidents and politicians of both parties joins us now via satellite from Philadelphia. We are pleased to welcome in political analyst Dick Morris. Dick, it's always good to have you here on America's Forum. And what do you believe the president will say in his televised address tomorrow night?
Well, it's kind of funny. Your last two stories on the news, the Ebola outbreak and ISIS, have a great deal in common because in both cases, the president ignored the problem, and in at least the ISIS case, it escaped quarantine and became a major issue, which he now has to address. The president has ratings for weakness at this point that are extraordinary. And people are regarding his foreign policy in a nonpartisan and negative way. They're seeing it as too weak. Some of the dubs are seeing it as too hawkish. Many women who might have been soccer moms under Clinton and security moms under Bush and single moms who voted Democrat under Obama now are having concerns about safety and wondering if the president is up to the job. So what he's going to try to do is to project a very strong, almost martial image while reassuring his base. But I think the problem is that you could have nipped this in the bud in Iraq, and then when it was a little larger in Syria, and then when it came back to Iraq, it's a full-blown epidemic and will require years of American military involvement.
Years of involvement, and Dick, also a good bit of American taxpayer money. Our parent website, Newsmax.com, with a story this morning, the headline reading that the president is going to ask for $5 billion. Is that just the first round, the down payment, in your opinion? Will this price undoubtedly go up?
Yeah, of course it is. And I believe that Obama is having to reverse field on everything on the ISIS issue. He once said ISIS was the junior varsity, and they could put on Lakers uniforms, but they wouldn't be Kobe Bryant. And that comment was as little as 8 months ago. And now he's having to reverse field by a major aerial military commitment, and I believe it will inevitably be followed by ground troops. Initially, there are 650 of our men and women that are en route to Iraq or there already. There will be more added as spotters for airstrikes and advisors to Iraqi intelligence and advisors to Iraqi military units. But we're going down the familiar path of Vietnamization, where more and more involvement is called for. And this is the price of having ignored it at a point when you could really have stopped it. Indeed, many of the arms that the CIA annex was trying to process from Benghazi went through Turkey and ended up in the hands of the ISIS army, which we're going to be fighting now in Iraq, and there are weapons.
So the irony is American forces will encounter American weapons now in the hands of ISIS. Dick, you advised a commander-in-chief named Clinton who engaged in an air war in the Balkans. His successor initially engaged in Afghanistan primarily with air power and with special forces. When you talk about boots on the ground under a commander-in-chief named Obama, do you believe it will end up being a back-to-the-future moment, reminiscent of what we did in the early days post 9/11 in Afghanistan? In other words, not a huge infrastructure, not a huge American military footprint, but forces necessary to call in and supplement the air assets we'll utilize?
Well, the Northern Alliance, the coalition of tribes in northern Afghanistan that we used in 2002 and 2003 to topple the Taliban regime in Kabul, were a very effective military force, very well organized, and did a very good job. And American troops were embedded in the units, involved with them in helping them fight. The ground rules Obama is suggesting now would preclude America from doing that. And the caliber of the Iraqi army could be seen in the last year when they all just threw down their weapons and ran like hell when ISIS presented itself. And if we believe that we're going to be able to topple this country by air power rather than by boots on the ground, we're wrong. Let me correct history, though. The Kosovo air bombing was significant, but far more important in freeing Kosovo were the economic sanctions on the Serbian nation. And Serbia, being a basically Western European nation, was affected by them very dramatically and traumatically. And so you can't just use Kosovo as an example of air power. Air power will keep them out of the desert, but when you get to the cities like Fallujah and Mosul, you're going to need troops. And I don't think you can count on the Iraqi army to do that. And I'm not sure that the American military should be used in their place.
So, as you set up that equation, sounds to me like President Obama is going to have to invite in a pan-Arab coalition to take the place of the Iraqi army and be the ground presence in this rather than a substantial introduction of American troops.
Well, the first thing he can do is to stop them from funding ISIS. ISIS's money comes from Qatar and Kuwait and Saudi businessmen, and they've been playing this game. While Obama has been ignoring ISIS, they've been funding it in the hopes that it would defeat Assad and in the hopes that it would counter an Iranian presence with a vigorous Sunni presence in a caliphate state in Iraq and Syria. Now the monarchies are realizing that before they're Sunnis or Shiites, they're Islamists, and they will oppose the monarchies in the Gulf and in Saudi Arabia. So they have nurtured this snake, and now it's turning around and biting them. And the first thing we have to do is to cut off the flow of funding. One of the steps we should take to do that is on day after tomorrow to release the 28 redacted pages of the 9/11 Commission report that detail the aid that Saudi Arabia, through one of its agents in the United States, funded the hijackers on 9/11. And for some incredible reason, neither Bush nor Obama has released that. And those pages need to be released. There needs to be a groundswell against Arabic funding of these extremists. Otherwise, it's just going to continue.
All right, so the headline we can take away from our time with you is Dick Morris calls on the redacted findings of the 9/11 Commission to be made public as part of the effort to try and restrict funding to Islamist groups like ISIS.
Precisely. That's a good headline. You ought to work for a news station.
Hard to believe, isn't it, Dick? We've got that going. Well, as a recovering member of Congress, we know that there's a political equation involved in all of this with the upcoming midterms. We got about 2.5 minutes remaining. The president thus far is resisting the notion of asking for formal congressional authorization to take on ISIS. Instead, he's been talking about a buy-in. Is that fine with the elected leadership in the House and quite frankly, a lot of people who are going to be on the ballot this fall?
Yeah, I think it's an issue they're just as happy not to come before them at this point. So I think it's probably with their complicity. But there's an interesting thing going on. The immigration issue, which I believe is the key to winning the midterms, and I know you do, has become the national security issue, Ted Cruz's comment that you played a few minutes ago. And it's become the economic issue. In the jobs report for August, a statistic that's published every month and the media doesn't report because it's too embarrassing for them, is that during the month of August, 650,000 Americans born in the United States lost their jobs, while 650,000 Americans not born in the United States, naturalized citizens, illegal aliens, and green card holders all lumped together, gained jobs. 650 lost, 650 gained. And since Obama took office, 1 million native-born Americans have gotten jobs, and 3 million foreign-born Americans have gotten jobs. So 3 out of every 4 jobs created under the Obama administration, as sparse as that total is, went to people who were born outside the United States. And if you wanted any better proof that the economic and unemployment issue is the immigration issue, it's those statistics.
Before we go, 45 seconds left. We're going to have the anniversary of 9/11. Here we are coming up on 9/11/2014. Are we at a greater risk now than we were on September 11th of 2001?
No, we're at a much lower level of risk because we've had 20 years of aggressive efforts to control terrorism. I think that Obama's been lacking in many respects, but the FBI and the CIA and DIA have all been on the job, and I think we're much better protected. The key reason we were vulnerable in 9/11 is because President Clinton treated the 1993 attack on the World Trade Center as a crime rather than a declaration of war.
And on that, we'll have to end it. Dick Morris, we thank you for your time.